in terms of this particular meeting, we will be capturing attendance. We will open the line at the end of the call for question and answers, questions and comments, and allow the residents to speak with respective DCHA staff. We're going to be asking that all questions and comments be kept to about 2 minutes, and if you could be mindful of asking kind of personal unit or personal situation questions that relate to your health or a rent issue or an issue that's already been kind of escalated to the property manager. If you can reserve those questions for another time or direct them directly to Ms. Hightower, and use this time to ask any RAD related questions. Again, the meeting is being recorded and every line has been muted. And with that, I will go ahead and turn over the presentation to Alex Morris.
Thank you, LaShawn.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. We are here to talk about the rental assistance demonstration program and its impacts upon our plans for the LeDroit Senior Building and the Kelly Miller Townhomes. So first of all, DCHA's mission is to preserve, manage, and develop quality, affordable housing for extremely low through moderate income households, foster sustainable communities, and cultivate human capital opportunities for residents to improve their lives. Our agenda for tonight is, in addition to LaShawn and myself, we're going to introduce a couple more DCHA staff who will talk about other aspects of the RAD program and what it means for the LeDroit Senior Apartments and Kelly Miller Townhomes. We'll talk about why we would choose to do RAD and some RAD facts. We'll talk specifically about the LeDroit Senior Apartments and Kelly Miller Townhomes, and talk a little bit about the Kelly Miller walk-ups and LeDroit walk-ups as well. We'll do a relocation process overview. We'll introduce you to a representative of the Office of Resident Services to talk about services available to you, which are not available later, but are actually available right now for you to use. We'll talk about our resident engagement strategies, particularly in response to COVID-19 considerations, and then talk about next steps. Next slide, please. So first of all, why would DCHA apply for HUD's RAD program? Well, there are two reasons. Number one, the federal government does not provide enough funding to make improvements needed for residents of public housing, the kinds of improvements that residents deserve. RAD is an option to obtain more sustainable funding choices for the Public Housing Authority and improve the public housing properties by converting to a Section 8 contract, which is a housing choice voucher contract, otherwise known as a project-based voucher and funding stream, rather than Section 9, which is public housing. DCHA estimates that its capital needs as of 2019 were exceeding $2.5 billion. Next slide. RAD is a HUD-funded program that allows DCHA to fund major building improvements and stabilize federal funding for the future with no resident displacement, no loss of federal housing benefits, and no change in the rent calculation, provided it's based upon 30% of your adjusted income. If you're paying a flat or ceiling rent, there would be an adjustment to 30% of your income. The rent would adjust to that level over a period of years. But if you're currently paying 30% of your income, that would stay the same under RAD. Next slide. Some other RAD facts. RAD is an acronym. It stands for the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. This was originally created by HUD in 2012. HUD crafted this federal program as a response to fill the growing gap between decreasing federal funding and increasing capital needs for public housing units. And because federal funding is often not enough to provide for the high upkeep costs of existing properties, RAD allows a public housing authority to move away from the federal annual contributions contract, which is the public housing subsidy, to a Section 8 housing choice voucher assistance. This makes it possible to obtain funding from private and alternative sources to improve the capital needs of buildings. Next slide. So how does RAD work? RAD allows the Public Housing Authority to work with partners who want to invest in building improvements. This could give the DCHA the opportunity to borrow money for improvements, seek bond issuance for improvements, work with philanthropic or charitable partners, and take on development partners or investors to help complete a project. Could you go back one? Thank you. The scope of work of a RAD conversion includes bringing the building up to what is called 20-year viability. And this scope of work can include apartment renovations, such as renovations to kitchens, bathrooms, and finishes, updating building systems like electric, plumbing, fire suppression and fire safety, mechanical systems like heating and air conditioning, making energy efficiency improvements to the building, installing new windows, roofs, and doing work on building exteriors, enhancing community spaces, and improving building security. We're already funding a lot of this at both Kelly Miller Townhomes and LeDroit Senior, but we will be looking for your feedback as residents of the property for any future building improvements. What will DCHA do with RAD? Well, RAD is very good, in particular, for converting a property where you're planning to do a renovation as opposed to a redevelopment. And so with RAD, we can commit at LeDroit Senior Apartments and at Kelly Miller Townhomes that you will have the same number of apartments after the conversion as before, with the same configuration of units, so the same bedroom mix and the same layout. The construction we do will be phased to minimize any moves. And in the case of LeDroit Senior Apartments and Kelly Miller Townhomes, revised RAD funding streams from HUD under Section 8 is a more stable and capable funding source to serve future maintenance needs of the properties. So first of all, the LeDroit Senior Apartments. This is a building built in the 1960s. It says here that it has 106 units, but we've actually confirmed that it's 113 units. There are currently 8 vacant units in the site. At the time this slide was created, it was 6, but now it's 8. We are doing work at this building using existing District of Columbia funds, and those funds should improve the vast majority of conditions at LeDroit Senior Apartments and put the building into a state of full viability. We've also done work at the Kelly Miller Townhomes to replace roofs and do painting. Next slide, please. So on this page, you'll see that under the top right, it says rehabilitation and maintenance. We've already made investments in site work and parking to the tune of $500,000. We are replacing roofs and doing painting in the Kelly Miller Apartments, Kelly Miller Townhomes to the tune of about $900,000. We're doing a full unit modernization at the LeDroit Senior Building to the tune of about $12.7 million. And we're doing an elevator modernization at the LeDroit Senior Building as well. We also have some other investment work that's not related to district funds, such as doing LED lighting and water savings and replacing the chiller at LeDroit. Next slide. So for LeDroit Senior, if you're interested in knowing where are we starting this phased work at LeDroit Senior, if your apartment ends in the number 04 or 05, you're in phase 1. Later phases will continue down that corridor past what is currently the management office and work its way past the elevator over to the other staircase. But if you're in phase 1, you have a unit number that is either 04 or 05. And if you're in phase 1, you have already been contacted by the mobility team at DCHA to plan your move. And that move will be taking place over the next few weeks. Next slide. Similarly, at the upper floor plans, if your unit number on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, or 6th floor ends in 04 or 05, you're also in phase 1. Why are we doing this on every level? We're doing it because we have to do the unit renovations in vertical stacks in order to fix the plumbing and the other vertical systems that run through the building. So there'll be phase work at every floor in vertical stacks of units with similar numbers. 04, 05 will be phase 1. Next slide. In the future, we plan to come back to you to talk about the Kelly Miller and LeDroit walk-ups. These buildings are older. They were built in the 1940s in the case of Kelly Miller walk-ups, and in the 60s in the case of the LeDroit walk-ups. but they're generally older and they have more capital needs, and we need a more long-term solution that includes redevelopment at this site. We're going to be doing a different strategy for engagement with you to talk about our plans for this site and engage you in a conversation about your vision and desire for the redevelopment of Kelly Miller and LeDroit walk-ups. They are not part of the RAD conversion. Here's an example on this slide. This is slide number 15, if you're following along, of work we've done at the Kelly Miller and LeDroit walk-ups. For example, stabilizing the smokestack for $250,000 back in 2017, renovating 4 units in 2017, and also doing some soil remediation. As I said, we have longer term plans here, so we will be coming back to you in the future with different engagement strategy for talking about the Kelly Miller and LeDroit walk-ups. So now, what are my rights as a resident? Well, you're guaranteed the right to return with no rescreening. Full relocation assistance is available if you need to move temporarily during construction. And if you live at LeDroit Senior, you will need to move during construction. Your resident councils after the RAD conversion will be funded in the same way as they're currently funded under public housing. So your resident council will remain, and resident rent will be based upon 30% of adjusted income, which is the same as is current in the public housing program, unless you pay a floor or ceiling rent. Now I'd like to ask Deborah Jackson of the mobility team to talk a little bit about the relocation process.
Hi, how is everyone tonight? So my name is Deborah Jackson. I'm a mobility supervisor here with the District of Columbia Housing Authority. And my team and I work hard to make sure that your transition is seamless from one point to the next. If you have already started your move process, you already have started talking to Katrina Jeter, who is on the ground weekly, making sure that you guys have a smooth transition. But for those people who have not started the relocation process, these are the 6 steps that you will go through when you reach the mobility specialist and relocation coordinator. So on the first step, DCHA relocation team works in partnership with residents about future development and relocation plans, which include informing residents on phasing and scheduled move dates. We will make sure that we tell you each step of the way when you need to be packed. If you need assistance packing, we will schedule that. Just in case you have doctor's appointments or other appointments or work, we want to make sure that you are there and we schedule it around your time and your schedule. Number 2, after renovation schedules are finalized and impacted, residents have been informed. DCHA relocation team completes relocation surveys to assess special needs and circumstances. So we do this one-on-one survey with you guys to make sure that if you have any barriers, any situations that you don't want to talk about with anyone else, especially your neighbors, we are there to do a one-on-one survey to ask you questions like, do you have any accommodations that you may need? Do you, do you need a grab bar, or do you have a medical bed that needs to be taken down? So we make sure we ask those questions to make sure that, again, all the steps are taken care of and the transition is seamless. Step 3, DCHA relocation team will work with households to prepare for relocation, provide necessary packing materials. So we do provide that. We provide boxes, tape, wrapping for your dishes. And then, of course, if you cannot pack or you cannot move things off of shelves, that's when at the time of the relocation survey, you will let that mobility specialist know or relocation specialist that you cannot pack, and we will make sure we schedule that. Also, we'll notify households of upcoming move dates. Number 4, DCHA relocation team will be present on the day of your move to supervise activity and ensure all relocation needs are satisfied. Katrina Jeter is there every single step of the way. Like I said, when it comes to move, she's on the ground the day of the moves to make sure that if there is anything that goes wrong, she is right there to pick up the pieces and make sure that it gets back on track. Number 5, DCHA's relocation team will hire a qualified moving company to move families. Services include the moving of belongings, dismantling and reassembling all furniture, and packing assistance if needed. We have worked with these movers for various amounts of moves, again, over the years. So we have a trusted relationship with them, and that's why we use those specific ones. DCHA's relocation team will relocate families from current units to temporary or permanent, where applicable, pay relocation costs, and stay in touch with the families. While you're in the move of being in your temporary unit, we will notify you of how the construction is going, what's the estimated time you'll get back in your unit. It is our hope and our, effort to make sure that this is a seamless process for you guys, and that we always keep you guys up to date. So thank you very much. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Deborah. Now I'd like to invite Zoe Rich of our Office of Resident Services to talk about the services that are available to you as residents. Ms. Rich?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zoe Rich, FSS Coordinator for the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. I am here to give you a brief overview of the in-house services that Resident Services provide. Workforce development at the Southwest Family Enhancement Center, who offers resume preparation, occupational skills training, direct employment, and a partnership with UDC providing virtual classes due to COVID-19. Financial literacy, we engage our residents with webinars that address the importance of financial security and understanding the building blocks of financial stability. How to use financial tools to achieving goals and managing money, credit, and debt. We have incorporated a new rent reporting program that provides the residents with on-time monthly rental payments, which build credit and is reported to the major consumer credit bureaus. Home ownership, we refer services to Lydia's House, housing counseling services, Latino economics, and for those residents seeking to become homeowners, we too provide webinars that address making good financial decisions. Are you ready and in position financially to afford a new home? How to raise your credit score and manage a monthly budget. To ensure our safety as well as our residents due to COVID-19, we provide virtual classes with our nonprofit agencies who are presenters engaging our residents with resourceful information to becoming homeowners. The Family Self-Sufficiency Program offers the following pathway incentives, which are education, employment, and homeownership. We provide case management assigned to the FSS coordinator, referral services, credit counseling, financial literacy, homeownership preparation, and employment services. The FSS is a 5 to 7 year program with immediate goals and monetary incentives with the completion of the program. Eligible residents are required to complete an application, orientation, and to have a contractual agreement with the FSS program. Last but not least, your community navigator are the boots on the ground in the community, and through outreach, residents are educated about property levels, DCHA, citywide services, programs, and resources. And your community navigator is Henry Johnson. His number is 202-415-2267. His email address is hjohnson2@dchousing.org. If you have an interest in any of the services or questions, please contact Mr. Johnson, your community navigator. I will also put his contact information in the chat box. Thank you for your time and attention. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much. Our RAD resident engagement process, I'd just like to go through that a little bit. Prior to submitting an application to HUD, DCHA provides residents with a resident information notice. It's called a RIN. It's spelled RIN. to convey general written information on potential project plans and basic resident rights under RAD. You should all now be in receipt of your RIN, and I hope you've read it. If you have not, if you need another copy, please let us know. DCHA conducts at least 2 resident meetings prior to submitting the application to HUD. This evening meeting is the second half of our second round of meetings prior to our submitting. So this is now going to go to the Board of Commissioners of DCHA, which is the next bullet. DCHA must secure board approval to submit RAD applications to HUD. So DCHA will submit to HUD, along with the application, a written summary of all resident comments and the DCHA responses to comments. So if you give us a question tonight, we're going to write that question down. We're going to respond to it if we're able to on the phone. And regardless of whether we respond on the phone or not, we will write down an answer to that question, and we will make sure that you are copied with that question and answer that has been asked on this call. And we will then give a copy of all those questions and answers to HUD as part of the evidence that we have engaged with you as part of the RAD process. In the future, after the Board of Commissioners approves our application, DCHA will hold additional meetings. For example, DCHA must hold 2 additional meetings with residents before submitting the financing plan to HUD, which is a step that comes after the RAD application process. And other meetings may be necessary in the future if plans change or if DCHA requires an additional extension of time. DCHA will also effectively communicate with persons with disabilities and language barriers. This means making meetings accessible to various types of disabilities, which could limit communication. And DCHA also complies with the district. Excuse me one second. I'm sorry, Sheila, I can't read the bottom. There's a toolbar across the bottom of the screen that's preventing me from reading that.
It says district language access laws.
Sorry, thank you. The toolbar didn't go away. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you, LaShawn.
No problem. And just along the same lines as with resident engagement, simply what Alex was touching on, given the nature of this COVID-19 and the status that we're in right now, we're not being able to meet in person, we have adopted this virtual meeting platform in order to engage with our residents. Obviously, we would love to have these meetings in person, but under the emergency order, it prohibits gatherings and meetings in person. So we've modified how we're meeting, and we're doing it on this platform with WebEx, which will have 2 meetings, as Alex stated. We've also made sure we accommodate those with limited English proficiency needs and that we are complying with ADA. We've also been able to provide residents with copies of the PowerPoint presentation in advance of the meeting so that they're able to follow along, as well as follow-up calls before and after the meetings, and then also a summary of the question and answers, which will be posted to our website. And that those documents can be found on dcha.us. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, LaShawn. So for next steps, what can you expect from us? Residents, as I said, will receive written answers to any questions posed during, before, and after the meeting. Residents will receive a copy of the Q&A asked during both meetings. If you have property-specific questions, please continue to reach out to Sharomia Hightower, your property manager, at chightower@dchousing.org, or by calling her at 202-403-9326. If you have relocation questions, please contact Katrina Jeter at kjeter@dchousing.org, or by calling Ms. Jeter at 202-926-7004. And if you have any questions related to RAD or to the transformation plan, you can always call the transformation plan hotline at 202-996-8526 or email transformationplan@dchousing.org. We look forward to working with you on this important initiative. And with that, we are at the end of our presentation, and I'm going to turn it back to LaShawn Douglas for Q&A. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Alex. All right, before we jump into Q&A, just wanted to see if I can capture, we have 2 callers on the line that I don't have on our attendance log. So I'm just going to call out the first 6 digits of your number, and if you could just provide your name, that would be helpful. So I'm going to unmute the line. It's 202706. Are you with us? Can you state your name and number? Excuse me, your name, your first and last name, excuse me. Be a resident caller with the number 202706. All right, I'm gonna mute that line, and then I'm gonna unmute 202321.
Tashia Scott.
Tashia Scott. Thank you, Ms. Scott. I'm gonna go ahead and mute your line.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll begin our Q&A, and I'm just gonna go through the attendance log here and then unmute each line. And just as a reminder, we'll be taking RAD-related questions, and we ask that you limit your comments and questions to 2 minutes. Essie. Okay, so the first resident I have is Essie Griffin.
No questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Katrilla Quick, any questions or comments?
No question.
Okay, thank you. I have a caller that called in by first name Marquita. Marquita, did you have any questions or comments? You're unmuted. All right, thank you. Unmute your line. Next person I have is Ms. Salima Harris. Salima, did you have any questions or comments? Thank you for joining us again.
Yes, I do. A few questions about the RAD conversion project that was done in the Colorado-Columbia Road site, and it's under a new ownership that was created by DCHA, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
So oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. So the question is, with them, if this is under new ownership, is this a for-profit or not-for-profit new owner?
It's a limited liability company that's controlled by the DC Housing Authority.
So control is the same thing as ownership, or that's different?
Yes.
So so the landlord would still be DCHA, is what you're saying?
Technically, it's the LLC. So HUD requires that we enter into a HAP, that project-based HAP, with a different owner. So that's why we have DCHA as providing the housing assistance payment to the limited liability company that's controlled by the housing authority. So HUD won't let us do a contract between DCHA and DCHA.
So I have to look at it as 2 separate entities then, because I guess my concern is once these apartments are converted to the RAD, and then it's under the project-based vouchers. So let's say after the project, the new landlord can say, well, you know what? Hey, DCHA, you give the determination of how much these vouchers are going to be. There's not enough money for us anymore. So we want to do away with the voucher program. So we're not accepting anyone who takes vouchers now. So where does that leave these tenants? And that's one concern I have, because these new landlords do have a right to do that. Another concern is, how are these the new leases that we will then have to sign after the conversion? The lease can say anything, so how can we ensure that there will be the same policies, procedures, and house rules that we currently have with DCHA now transferred to the new lease? Is that something we can get in writing and contract for us to ensure us? And then Another question I have is, I have so many.
Would you like me to answer a few of those right now? Or you want to?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
you can.
So let's start
please.
with the lease. So HUD requires, the RAD program requires that the lease comply with the same rights that you have today. It also requires that there is no other, remember we said it's controlled by the housing authority. So there will be a new project-based contract. There's no other one, no one else is involved except for that LLC that's controlled by DCHA under a long-term contract that must be renewed. So there is no other owner involved in Colorado.
Okay, so when you say long,
so long-term, it has to be a minimum. We've already done it, 15 years. So we've executed a 15-year contract that has to be renewed. And we have to follow the same rules. RAD requires that. So we've already signed all those agreements that require that we, as Alex went over in the presentation, your rent is computed in the same way, based on 30%. So all those regulations and protections for residents are really what HUD has put in the requirements for RAD. So it's built in, just as we were saying, the resident council, lease, the grievance, the termination. Those are all already a part of the RAD program to make sure, and that's why we're pursuing it, is that it continues to protect residents in the same way that you are today. And in the case of Colorado and Columbia, we continue to manage that property. So for the residents who live there, we have actually, we did regulations to make it, as we call it, seamless as possible, so that there's as few things that are different from public housing to the project-based RAD.
And I'd just like to add that that is our plan. The plan that we followed through on with Colorado and Columbia is the same plan we're planning to follow through on with LeDroit.
So with, you have to, from my understanding, you have to submit like an application for funding annually. Correct. And the COVID is really taking, the economy is taking a hit from COVID. So we really don't know how much money will be allotted. So it's as if you all are clear that you're going to move the residents and they're going to be in a temporary location. But what's not clear is what temporary means, because a year from now, 5 years from now, the government, the federal government, can say, you know what, we don't have enough money to bring these people back. And as far as we're concerned, LeDroit, historic LeDroit Park, is very prime real estate. Just 2 blocks away, there are houses that are going for $2 million. So I can understand the push to get rid of or even remove individuals who, you know, appear to be non-productive and all that other stuff. So I understand that part. I just want to make sure, you know, it's self-preservation, basically.
Yeah, let me take that first part of that question. So when we talk about relocating residents of LeDroit Senior and for doing renovation work, what we're talking about is we've created what we call make-ready units within the portfolio of vacant units in the LeDroit Senior building and also in the LeDroit walk-up buildings across the street. And residents are moving from their existing unit into a make-ready unit that will serve as their apartment for a very short duration of time, 4 to 6 months, while we fix the apartments. And then they're going to go right back to their original apartment. In some cases, as we get to the vacant units, someone may be able to opt to go directly into a brand new renovated unit and leave their old apartment. But we're not proposing to relocate anyone out of LeDroit property. And we're not proposing to have anyone be out for multiple years. And to address the second part of your question about funding, all of the funding we're using to fix the LeDroit Senior building is already allocated by the district government. And so we have almost $14 million already put aside for the renovation work at LeDroit Senior, which will put that building into a very good state of repair over the next couple of years as we spend the money and work on each phase of units as we go around. So there's not a question of whether the money will be available later. It's already available now. So I hope that addresses your two questions.
That does. And one last question. I have many more, but just one last question.
Okay.
Your renovation,
Yes.
I think it's where you get residents to also be able to work on the site also. Does that include that?
Section 3.
Section 3, yes.
We do require Section 3 participation from all of our contractors. That doesn't mean any specific person will be hired, but it does mean that they're all required to comply with the provisions of that program and hire Section 3 workers as part of their commitment.
Okay. So how will we get access to the rights? Because we all have rights, but that don't mean the rights are going to be enforced. Like a right to return. Okay, we have rights, but that doesn't mean anyone can be forced or made to get us back into our original properties. So is there something written? Are there contracts or anything that we can see or come up with moving forward, working with you all?
We're currently working on an update to our DCHA transformation plan. And if you remember last summer, we put out our draft plan and then we asked for public comments. We're now going through and making edits based on the comments we received. And many of those questions and comments were related to trying to write down and codify some of these tenant rights. So we welcome your feedback in that process. And we're also going to take your question and write it down, and we'll formulate a more thoughtful answer in writing to your question to provide you more guidance as to how you can participate.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Salima, I know you said you had some additional questions. We're going to go on to the next resident, and if we have time at the end of the meeting, we can come back to any remaining questions that you may have.
Sure. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Tiffany Daly, do you have any questions or comments?
Actually, I wanted to piggyback off of what Salima asked because I actually didn't hear that answer fully. She was speaking about specifically, I think, Kelly Miller walk-ups and everything that you mentioned. You said LeDroit and you said LeDroit Senior. Her question was about having the capital or having the means to complete the renovation for
For the
reconstructing the cat, and you didn't unless I didn't hear it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood. Yes, I misunderstood that then because I thought that the question was about the RAD conversion part. The other part, the Kelly Miller walk-ups and the LeDroit walk-ups, we are looking at a longer-term strategy for that to redevelop the property. In particular, the Kelly Miller walk-up buildings are very old. They're 1945 was when they were built, so they have a lot of long-term needs, and we are looking to have a separate engagement process with you if you're a resident of the Kelly Miller walk-ups to talk about what we need to do there. So in that case, it will be a little different. We will be looking probably for redevelopment of the property as opposed to rehab. So we're going to be reconstructing those buildings, and we may look for a partnership with a developer or some other private entity to help us do that.
That's the concern
That is
because the major concern because with our walk-ups and there are quite a few of us, our families, you're saying that you can guarantee certain things, but you actually can't because number one, you can't say that you have funding for it yet. You haven't been approved for, I'm sure, not demolition yet. So what assurities can we really have for those of us that live in the walk-up?
Well, nothing has changed so far with that. And what I would say about it is that we're going to have a separate process to talk about that. And you have the ability to comment on that process and help shape the future plans for the site. So I encourage you to stay engaged in this conversation and join those future meetings. We'll have a schedule out in the near future on that. You have rights as public housing residents, and you know that. So I'd say that your best bet is to continue to stay engaged.
Okay. All right. I mean, I have to think on my questions a little bit more, but that specifically jumped out at me because knowing that she is a walk-up resident, that I think that was what her intent was.
Mhm.
So, but I'm going to think a little bit more on my questions and hold them till the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And Ms. Bailey, if we don't have time to come back at the end, just for everyone's knowledge, we do have a transformation plan email address and voicemail box where if you don't think of your questions tonight, that you can also leave your questions and comments on the email box or on the voicemail box. They are checked daily.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Something just popped in my head really quickly. I'm sorry. Actually, I am really interested in the resources and making those resources available to everyone in terms of self-sufficiency and jobs. And I'm specifically, I gave a call to the job specialist, and there is actually, I'm trying to figure out if you guys will have more information readily accessible, because I've made a call myself and sent an email myself to get some of this information, and have not received any call back or made contact with anybody, and that poses a barrier for those who may really be interested in creating alternative means, towards self-sufficiency. Was that clear? Did you hear
No,
me?
that's a very good point. I think, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Deborah. I know that Ron Fisher is on the phone, and so I don't know if he's available to talk, but I know that if you did leave, sorry, my name is Deborah Jackson, I'm mobility supervisor, but I also know that there are members of the ORS team on this phone call, so we will make sure that we get your name, and we will have someone call you back from the Workforce Development Center.
Yeah, I did actually have a text message chain with you and Ron, but from my understanding is that there are separate processes, and specifically the job portion. I actually have the email and the number and have not been able to reach anybody. I have spoken with you. I've spoken with Ron. I've gotten the email. That part is sufficient, but there are parts that are lacking that need to be, rectified or addressed.
Yes, ma'am. And we will definitely talk to you offline and hear your concerns. And then we'll work with Brian Harrison and Byron Pugh to make sure that your concerns are addressed about the workforce.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. This is Ron Fisher again.
Yes,
echoing Ms. Jackson's comments. Yeah, I'll definitely be sure to go ahead and follow through on trying to rectify this issue right here. I also want to add in terms of some of the self-sufficiency programs in general, and once again, just accessibility. We are also actively working on upgrading some of the marketing material using our technology, such as again, you heard some of the programs that were mentioned by Ms. Rich, particularly highlighting one of our newer programs, which is the rent reporting program, which we're really excited about. But besides just word of mouth, we've also dropped off flyers, postcards, applications, things of that nature over at the designated properties that will be part of this demonstration. In addition, we're also working to go ahead and do text blasts, where the link will go ahead and lead people to a drop page on the website where you can go ahead and fill out an electronic copy of the application. We're also working on social media campaigns, basically short of smoke signal. We're trying to do our best to go ahead and make sure that the word gets out so residents are aware of programs such as, again, reporting, workforce, things of that nature. So please stay tuned. But in the meantime, I definitely want to go ahead and make sure that your particular issues resolved.
Well, it's not my particular issue. I think that, like with the self-sufficiency program, you have to make a minimum of 35 a year, and that's a barrier. And so there are people who are not employed, and if the employment part is the deficient part, where you have a person who is manning the program herself, and I actually heard on her voicemail where she kind of had I want to say a complaint saying that she had a huge load and she wasn't able to get to everybody. So this presents a barrier, because if you have programs that are intended to be good, like self-sufficiency and rent reporting to your credit and all these things, but people don't have the means to participate because they don't have income, then you're selling an idea rather than providing actual steps, practical steps for people to get to those programs.
Understand. And with the self-sufficiency, that's just only talking about the home ownership aspect. To your point, you heard a number of different services that were being offered, mentioned tonight. That is just one program out of the many, basically, that just has that one particular requirement, just because you're talking about home ownership in this case. But the other have income requirements, it's just a matter of, someone that's ready and willing. But in terms of accessibility and making sure that the word gets out there, and staff is available to go ahead and, talk through next steps and things of that nature. Once again, we'll definitely work on clearing up that particular problem.
Okay, I look forward to hearing, or figuring out how that can happen, how I can share it with, or how it can effectively be shared with the entire community through multiple channels.
Thank you, Kelly.
No problem.
All right, I'm gonna open the line for Troy Young. Do you have any questions, Mr. Young?
No, I do not. I do not have any questions. I just wanted to know, is there going to be any fluctuation into the rental status with people that's dealing with low income, or with the rental assistance?
I didn't quite catch the whole question, but are you talking?
Can you repeat the question? It's a little bit of background noise.
Oh. I was asking, will there be a fluctuation into the rental status?
So the rent you pay, in other words?
Yeah, like that we paying right now. The people that's dealing with low income.
When we convert through RAD, you're going to still pay 30% of your adjusted gross income in rent per month.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Okay. Okay, that's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you,
Mr. Young. Okay, I'm gonna open the line for Tashia Scott. Any questions or comments, Ms. Scott?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. And that, I'll mute your line one moment. That takes us, I think we have 2 callers that have not been identified. If I'm just gonna unmute your line, and if I could get your name and then your question and or comment. I have a caller that called in with the number 202517. You're unmuted. Did you have a question or comments?
Yes, this is Ms. Williams. I had a question when it in the concerns with the Kelly Miller and LeDroit walk-ups. I heard you say something about the near future. What is the time frame to where we will hear something about either what your plan is going to start, or when you're going to start thinking about whatever path you're going to go with the walk-ups? What is the time frame that we're looking at before we can hear something?
Thank you. Alex, do you want to take that?
I didn't realize I was on mute. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't have a time frame right at this moment, but we'll take down your question and we'll provide you that time frame in writing when we respond. I'm sorry that I'm not with that, but we will come back to you with a time frame.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question, and I'm going to go ahead and mute your line, Ms. Williams. All right, now we have another caller that has dialed in with 202907. Do you have any question or comment? Can you state your name?
And then the dude that you knew that was doing the motherfucking welfare scam shit.
I'm sorry, hello?
You know, together. She got to serve a big argument in this motherfucker. I know. She won't say I'm here. This is my house. There's no
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute the line. Is the person that's calling in from 202907. Do you have any questions or comments?
She gonna tell you
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put the line. Okay. And I don't see any questions in the chat, and so I just will see. I know I told Ms. Salima that we will come back to her if she has one more question, just in the interest of time. Salima, did you have another question that you needed addressed? I have you unmuted.
Okay.
No, not at the moment. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, very good. Okay, is there anyone that I omitted? If I've omitted you and not taking you off of mute, you can unmute yourself. Ask the question. Okay.
Daily again. I have a question about the Residents Council and how Kelly Miller could. I know that's through you guys, right? That's something that we can establish through housing, right? Correct.
Correct. It's through the Office of Resident Services.
So how do we go about getting? Because I'm trying to figure out if it would be in our best interest to organize that for ourselves to make sure that we can advocate for our own questions and concerns as a community. How do we go about doing that? And is it in our best interest to do so?
Do you not have a active resident council currently?
No, we don't.
It would be, I would say yes, in your best interest to have an active resident council. Generally, yes. I don't know what the process is. Does anyone on the phone know the process to set one up if it isn't
Yes,
active?
Ron Fisher should.
Yeah. So, Ms. Daly, were you inquiring about?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Could we have a just because it's a lengthy, I guess, like to do and live to go ahead and start one up, but I will say that this is an election year for resident councils across the district, and we can have an offline conversation again to kind of discuss what that looks like. And after our conversation, I would encourage you to go ahead and continue to have discussions with your navigator, Mr. Henry Johnson, but we can discuss offline. I can call you immediately after the meeting's over with.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Daly. All right. So with that, just want to remind everyone that if you have additional questions or comments that you'd like to leave for us, that we have a dedicated transformation plan line number that you can reach out to us on, and that number is 202-996-8526. That is a voicemail box. You can leave a message, and we do monitor that daily. And then you can also leave an email at transformationplan@dchousing.org. So this meeting will be posted to the dcha.us webpage for future viewings, and we'll also disseminate question and answers from a combined question and answer document from today's 2:00 meeting and 6 p.m. meeting, and that should be delivered to residents probably within a week or so following this meeting. Alex, did you have anything else before we conclude?
No, I don't. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight and spending time and asking some very good questions. We will take down all the questions that we answered tonight and all the ones that we were not able to fully answer, and we will provide written responses.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.